Hey everybody, it's Amy B, and here is your weekly installation of Agent Hacks. Today what we're going to talk about is financing, pre-approvals, tips, and scripts. If you like this topic and you like what you're hearing, type money below in the comments. Thank you so much. Okay. Another quick announcement before I begin. If you like what you see today on all my tips, I'm going to be live streaming an interview with my lender on Friday at 3:30 on my training page, and that's linked up in the post as well. So follow me there, and then you'll be able to watch a live streamed video with my lender, and you'll be able to ask questions if you're interested in advance of Friday. Okay, the other thing I'm offering here is if you want to click the link in the post above, you can get a copy of the PDF that I use called Financing Do's and Don'ts. All you have to do is share your email. So let's get into this. I've got a number of notes so that we can stay on track and I can get you all the information you need. We're going to go fast. You can watch this again if you'd like, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions or send me a private message. Here goes. We're going to break this into 3 sections. First, we're going to talk about buyers, then we're going to talk about sellers, and then we're going to talk about lenders. Okay, so first of all, with buyers, one of the first things that we do in my business when we get a new buyer is to ask them, will you be paying cash for this property? It's really important to ask that question because it kind of throws them off track because most people aren't paying cash. And it's a flattering question to ask, so they immediately kind of are engaged with you there. And most of the time they say no. And then you ask, will you be needing financing with this purchase that you're doing? And the main reason for this, and we ask a number of other questions that I share in my course, The Ultimate Buyer Loyalty Process. But since this video is very focused on financing and money, we're just going to talk about the financing aspects of it. So if they say yes to paying cash, what you're going to want to do there is get proof of funds immediately before you start ever showing a property, okay? What a proof of funds ideally looks like is it's a letter from a bank or an advisor. It is on letterhead and it is signed. The best type of proof of funds is having liquid cash. I recall back in the market crash times of the economic downfall where you might have stocks worth X amount one day and they're worth half that the next. So a letter from a bank that says something along the lines of this person has the liquid cash to purchase the home at 123 Main Street listed at $250. That's the best kind of proof of funds that you can get. I have had a number of people send proof of funds, screenshot of a bank account, screenshot of all of this. And let's say that the house was $150,000 and they're showing me $2 million in a bank account. That is not in a buyer's best interest to be sharing that information in that way. When you do your job as a buyer's agent, you should be getting this information up front. So proof of funds from a bank with a nice letter is all you need, or at least the bank is prepared to give it. You can even do a generic letter if you need, but there's no reason to screenshot a bank account with millions of dollars in it. That is not in your buyer's best interest, okay? So if they need financing, what your script is there is you want to say, let me have my trusted lender call you to get you pre-approved. What is the best number and time for him to reach you? All right. That's so important that it's your trusted lender. First of all, that you have a trusted lender, that you have a lender that you know has got your back, that you know is asking the questions, and that you know is approving them so well that you're never, ever wasting your time by working with a buyer that they approve. Trusted lender is the key there. And you want all your buyers to get your pre-approval with your trusted lender. Your trusted lender is accountable to you. And if he starts giving you pre-approvals that don't close, that's a big problem and they'll no longer be your trusted lender. What my lender always says to me is, Amy, I don't get paid to say no. Think about that for a minute. If he tells me no on a buyer, I'm protecting my time and my business and my time that I have to spend with other buyers. Because if he says no, then if we do anything with that client, we're wasting time. They can't get the loan, right? So again, nobody gets paid to say no. Get them with a trusted lender and make sure that they fully approve that person. So what a full approval is they are, pulling credit. They are getting complete, information on their W-2s, and they are checking the debt and the income, especially if it's in an independent contractor or a salesperson, because that can be very tricky. And the last thing you want to do is find out that some random lender didn't ask the right questions in the pre-approval. And therefore, when you're getting down to the closing, oops, they forgot to ask a question that was really important and now they can't get the loan. Never want that to happen. So your trusted lender is somebody that you've interviewed, you've vetted, you've worked with for a long time. If you're new, you better find somebody, because this is your lifeline. This is your source of getting paid and having a livelihood and having an income, right? I can tell you that last year, this is how much money my lender made me in fixing things or saving things or catching things that would have been fallen through the cracks in other financial institutions. And I'm talking, I would have had to walk away from $42,000, myself and my buyer's agent, if my lender didn't ask the right questions and do the right things. This is what a trusted lender can do for you. Don't ask them for marketing money to pay for Zillow. If they're earning their keep, they're saving deals, they're making deals happen, and they're stepping in and doing big things for you. That's why you give them all your business, or as much as possible. Now, when I say that I want to have my trusted lender call a buyer, I insist on this. There's no way around it. Even if they have a bank that they already work with, that's fine. But I'm also going to have you get approved with my lender. What I know is that all lenders don't actually run credit and get all the documents. They'll just ask what the person makes. They won't ask specific questions to dequalify them or disqualify them, right? So, and a lot of lenders, what they'll do is they'll say that they can do the loan up front because they want to get the business. And then once they get into it a little bit more, they realize they can't do it, or they realize they can't do it at the very end of the transaction. And then somebody else has to come in and save the deal, right? So a buyer can absolutely get a pre-approval with another bank also. But what I know is that if they also talk with my trusted lender, they are going to have a backup, and that trusted lender is protecting me. And we're going to talk more about the safety component of having a trusted lender pre-approve all your buyers later, because it is a huge safety component for your livelihood. All right, another kind of script that I use with buyers is the last thing I want for you is to fall in love with a house that you can't have. And that's why we get them pre-approved before they make a purchase. This way, I know that you are paying, that this is the way that they as buyers will absolutely know what the payment is that's associated with the home that they make an offer on. They're informed about taxes. And taxes in my part of Cincinnati, Ohio, in certain parts can make up a third or 33% of that mortgage payment. So if they're not factoring in taxes, which is the biggest mistake I see people make, they are not accurately identifying their price range. So a great lender will give them the information on what their payment looks like. The other thing, and the other reason why buyers need to get approved right away, and so do sellers need to get approved right away, is because there's credit issues that could come up. And a credit issue will completely kill a bank transaction right now. What are credit issues that can come up? Well, obviously bankruptcies and foreclosures and short sales and things like that, which definitely have happened in the past. But here's the things that I see most commonly. A blockbuster fine. Believe it or not, that'll kill a deal. A library fine has come up before. And you know what happened to me personally? I had 2 babies between 2011 and 2012. And somehow a blood draw lab bill got missed, because if you know how many bills come in after you have a baby and during your pregnancy, there are so many that sometimes you lose track of one. And I had an $89 missed payment on a lab bill that caused me to have to correct that and then reapply. It's crazy the things that come up. That's why when you tell your buyers stories like this, they understand how the littlest things can impact it and why they should want to make sure that they're rock solid before they make an offer, so that when they fall in love, they can have what they want, okay? And all this is done with a pre-approval at the very beginning of the process. Having the pre-approval for the buyer in the beginning of the process puts them in a power position. It's the strongest power position. And they're confident, informed about making the offer. How many times do we take a buyer out and they say, oh, this house is $250. I don't know, like, what's the payment with that? That should have been figured out before we go into the house. Or when they're sitting there trying to decide what offer they want to make on the property, and they say, oh, let's go in at $225 because it might be too high to pay $250. I don't know what that payment's going to be. You don't want to waste time when you're making an offer, especially in a fast market, with not being very transparent about what the payment is associated with a certain price point. And they will be super confident at writing that price in and knowing that they can afford that. It's when they're teeter-tottering on that price that, they're probably not financially stable enough to be at that price range. And they could be causing you a lot of heartache as an agent, going in really lowballing or writing dozens of offers because they're not confident in what that payment is. You always want to include the pre-approval letter with the offer. I focus on listings in my business, and I have a buyer's agent. And less than half the time I get a pre-approval letter with the offer. And in my agent remarks, I say, local lender pre-approval must be included with offer. It's right there in every. And when the agent calls me before they make an offer, I tell them, have the pre-approval letter with the offer, because if we're in a multiple offer situation, your offer will not be considered or as strong. And it's amazing to me how many buyers agents are showing properties and are writing offers without pre-approvals. So we are always encouraging them to get that pre-approval letter. And sometimes, you know what happens? They don't end up writing an offer because they actually don't get approved. And the last thing you want to do is take your time and your client's time to negotiate an offer. And more importantly, you're showing your cards when you're negotiating, and you don't want to show your cards to someone that's not approved or that doesn't qualify for a loan. There are things that you can and cannot do regarding discrimination, but you can absolutely discriminate against somebody that can't qualify for a loan for the property that you're selling. And you need to make that a very top priority for protecting your clients in that respect, okay? Having that pre-approval letter right away and in the beginning of the process makes them ready to write. And then another tip that I'd like to mention is, if you're representing a buyer and you have a pre-approval letter, you can't black things out in the letter. The listing agent needs to see what the letter says. If you black things out like the price, they don't know what they qualify for. If you black things out like contingencies, that's an important aspect that the seller needs to know when you're giving an offer. So you can't black things out in the letter, all right? Get the letter written the way that, needs to be written for you to feel comfortable and your buyer to feel comfortable submitting that with an offer. I know these sound like obvious things, but so many times that the price is blacked out in these pre-approval letters, and that doesn't do anything for me. or the seller or their confidence. The biggest red flag that I hear is, oh, I'll be fine. I don't need a pre-approval letter. I'm a doctor. That's the biggest one. You know that doctors have more student loans than anyone else, and that counts against their debt. It's, everybody, I don't care who they are or what they do, they need to have a pre-approval letter before they get in your car. We have a buyer course that we give, right? And it's called the Ultimate Buyer Loyalty Process. And in that course, and specifically in my business personally, it's based on my business and what we've done. In that course, we require 3 absolutes. We teach 3 absolutes. And the 3 absolutes on the buyer side regarding financing to take on a buyer client are, number 1, that they have to have a pre-approval with our trusted lender. Number 1, first thing we do. When can I have my trusted lender call you? What's the best phone number? Number 2, we do a buyer consultation. So we set expectations. If they haven't gotten that pre-approval yet at the buyer consultation, that is the last time we will be meeting with them until they get their pre-approval. It's really nice to have that pre-approval before we sit down at the buyer consultation, because we can go over their financing options, their down payment options, and their strategy, okay? We can set some maximums on some price ranges so that they don't get in over their head on what they can afford. It's very important to have the buyer consultation. And number 3, a buyer loyalty agreement, or like a buyer agency agreement, is so important. I brought on my buyer specialist 3 years ago. And since she joined my team and she followed the guidelines that I teach in the Ultimate Buyer Loyalty Process, she has tripled her income with doing these things. And the number 1 thing is, when and where can I have my trusted lender call you? That is the first part of this process. Okay, guys, if you like what you see, type money below so that I know you're there, because I only see 1 comment down there. So type money if you like these tips that you're getting. All right, so sellers. Let's talk about sellers for a minute. Sellers should be getting pre-approved before you start the process of listing their house. In my opinion, sellers should be pre-approved after you do your initial pre-qualification phone call with them. What you want to do is make sure that they can get approved for what they want to buy, because most of the time when they're selling, they're also planning on buying. And you need to make sure that they are informed and confident on what they can buy in today's market, because financing stuff changes, employment changes, down payments change, programs change, requirements change all the time. They need to be informed, because you don't want to list a house and then find out that they can't get financing, right? That is killing your time and money and effort. So in the pre-qualification for sellers, we ask some key questions. And this is the process that I teach in my other course, which is focused on sellers, called Sell 100% of Your Listings. And in specifically, the questions that we ask for the sellers regarding financing are you considering renting the house? That question is important, because if they can't get the price that they want to sell their house, they'll say, I'm just going to rent the house. Okay, have you talked with the lender about that? Can you qualify for the purchase that you want to make if you're still holding this loan on this house? And most of the time they haven't thought about that. And that's why they need to talk to a lender. If they're considering that, they need to know what their options are up front. Because if they have to sell that house before they can buy another one, then they're going to have to sell the house and they don't have the renting option. And they need to be aware of that. Also, another part of talking with sellers about getting pre-approved in this market, especially if it's a fast-paced market, or if it's a market that has low inventory and you're going to be in a multiple offer, these sellers need to know if they can buy before selling, if it's an option. A lot of people assume it's an option for them, and it's not. And some people don't think it is an option, and it is. And your job as a professional realtor is to give them all the options and all the pros and cons for each option, because sometimes it does make sense for them to make the purchase before they sell. And they need to know if there are any limitations on that, and if the numbers work, because sometimes it's a little tight. Also, you want to ask questions like, do you have a second mortgage, an equity line, or a line of credit? Because all of those go back to, having to be paid off once the home is sold. And is some of that money intended for the buying side of the down payment? So really important questions to ask sellers to make sure that they're considering everything before we get into getting their house sold and doing financing. So one of the students in my listing class, Jeanette, just shared with us a really great antidote. She's using Vulcan 7 to make calls on expireds. So I know a lot of you guys here use Vulcan 7. So if you're a Vulcan 7 user, type Vulcan 7 in the comments now. So she called on an expired, and it had been listed for 190 days on the market with another agent. And she said, I'd like to interview for the job of selling your home. And they said, we are not selling this house. And she inquired about, why are you not selling the house? And they said, we found out that we don't qualify to buy a house. We can't get a loan. And she was like, holy moly, are you kidding me? Like, she's so thankful that she didn't take that listing 190 days ago, and she wasn't that first agent that spent 190 days of time and effort and however much money she spent on the marketing, only to find out that these people couldn't buy another house, and therefore they're not going to sell the one they're in, right? So these are really important pre-qualification questions that we teach in this listing class, so that you're not listing properties that won't sell, or you're not spending time and money on something that is a waste of time. It's amazing that sellers aren't getting pre-qualified before they list their house, just to make sure that they do have a place to go and a plan and a price range that they're aware of and what that payment looks like to them. It's so important. Sellers taking offers. Okay, people are shocked every time I say this, but if you're a seller and you're taking offers on your listing, and you're an agent advising sellers about offers to choose on their listings, be very careful, because when you're a listing agent representing a seller and you get an offer in on that house, you do not have to take that offer or even counter the offer if that offer does not come with a pre-approval letter from a bank that you feel confident is going to close the loan. Don't risk it. Don't risk it on a bank that has a bad reputation. Don't risk it on a bank that you've personally seen mess up multiple transactions. This is a picture of my old office and a U-Haul truck sitting in our parking lot. I share this picture with buyers and sellers all the time because I want them to understand that when you choose a bad bank, or a bank that typically doesn't do a very good job of pre-qualifying and doesn't do a very good job of closing the loan at the end of the day, they are risking all their stuff in this truck sitting in a parking lot somewhere. This is their whole life. And are they willing to risk this on a bank that they have never heard of, know nothing about, or has consistently failed at closing loans in the past? And this is where your value as a professional realtor comes into play. And you have to tell your seller, I have had failed transactions with this bank before. Why don't we continue to work towards getting another offer that is a better fit? Or let's have them get a backup approval with my local trusted lender so that we feel good about at least having another person have their eyes on this. And if the first bank doesn't close and the second bank, the trusted lender, did approve them, we can move it to them immediately, right? Did this a few times last year, okay? He saved some of these when the original bank didn't ask the right questions, okay? And we were able to close it so that the people didn't have this situation happen and they were able to buy their next house, because it's always a domino effect. And I cannot express to you that as a realtor, the most important vendor you have is your lender. Vet the hell out of them. Make sure that they can deliver on their pre-approvals, because if not, you might as well use that letter as toilet paper. All right. So as you know, as a listing agent, time is money, and every day that you take that property off the market for a bad lender, how many times have you had to sell a property a second time because the first person's financing fell through? In the state of Ohio, for all the transactions that fell through, 50% of the reasons why they fell through were for financing and appraisal. 50% for that. So you can bulletproof your listings by making sure that they're working with a strong lender. You can also bulletproof your buyer transactions by making sure they're working with the right lender, okay? You do this every day, multiple times a day, dozens of times a year. Your buyers need to trust you with the bank that you're recommending. It's absolutely vital, or else you're not going to be getting paid and you're not going to be in this business for very long. And they're going to be living in a van down by the river with all their stuff in a U-Haul. It's not fun, especially when they have kids. Trust me on this. All right, so let's talk. Oh my gosh, I see all kinds of comments. Thank you guys. Shay, Mary, Tanya. So let's move on to good lenders and what that looks like. What is a good lender? What is a lender that you want to be working with? Okay, a good lender is easy to reach. Whether it's on the phone, email, text, they're easy to reach. I can't tell you how many times as a listing agent I've tried to reach a lender and they don't call me back for days, or you just cannot reach them and they're not responding to basic questions. So you have to be easy to reach. A good lender will give a complete review of credit, income, and debt, and then issue a letter. This means that sometimes your sometimes your buyers are going to have to provide a lot of documentation. That should be done before they begin writing offers and looking for houses. That is a very important part of due diligence before they buy a home. So your lender, if they're good, will do that before they issue a pre-approval letter. A lot of lenders that I've had experience with will issue a letter based on verbal verification of employment. That is not enough. So even a good lender will state on their pre-approval letter that they have run credit, verified income, and checked whatever they need to check. It will be written right in the letter so that there's no question that that was already done. And a lot of times as a listing agent, I will call the lender on the letter to verify that those things were done and or ask them to rewrite their letter to say that. That's protecting your seller and protecting your investment and their investment in selling their home, because you know that if you have to put that house back on the market, you're not going to get what you got the first time. It's going to cost them money, and you don't want your seller to lose money. And this is a way that you protect them. This is a elevated level of professionalism and guidance that you're giving your clients as a professional agent. This is value add. This sets you apart from all other agents in the business. And when push comes to shove, this is the difference maker. This is the value that a realtor offers. All right. Good lenders provide estimates of payments at different price points and down payments with different programs and with different tax rates. They'll give you a couple. Now, you don't want to go crazy on this, but They'll give you a couple so that you can understand what it looks like. We have a lot of buyers that want to buy in our highest tax rate in Cincinnati. And I prepare them, hey, that's 33% taxes. So just by buying in that area, we might have to reduce your price point a little bit. And if you buy in this other area that you're also considering, we can increase your price point. That's all really important information to have before you pull their criteria in their portal and they start getting these online listings, and then they fall in love with a house that they can't afford, right? A great lender explains loan options and has loan options. It's not just one program, right? They have different down payment options, different MI options, different government options. So if they don't have those, they may not be the best lender to team up with because you're not able to give your clients the right kinds of options so that they can say yes. They have experience. And that is the most important thing of all with the lender, I believe, is if they haven't had enough experience, or my lender and I call it practice, we haven't had enough practice asking the questions and knowing which questions to ask and realizing when we've made mistakes and correcting them, they're not going to know how to basically bulletproof their process. So if they don't have experience, then ask about a mentor or somebody in their office or, you know, whatever that may be, because you want to really make sure that they're absolutely vetting and pre-approving those people before you put them in your car and you waste your time, or before you take an offer on some listing that may have to go back on the market later. A great lender is there to get your clients closed. That's what they're there for. That's their number one goal. That's all they should be focusing on for you, right? Not giving you money for your Zillow leads or your client appreciation party. You can't get enough money for those things to overcome and overcompensate for the deals that they save for you and the transactions that they save for you. Between my buyer's agent and I, he fixed or saved $42,000 worth of income for us. That's massive. And this is the value of having a trusted lender. And even if it's just a backup for certain offers or certain buyers or certain, you know, seller transactions, it's a backup that you know you can go to. So here's the kind of last caveat that I want to share with you guys. And again, if you like what you see, type money in the comments, please. It helps more people see this video and learn from this video. So type in the comments money if you like what you see. Let's talk about safety. It's funny because my lender is this like muscle guy. He's a workout guy and he's tough and he's great. But what he didn't understand in the beginning of working with me and my team was that the majority of the reason why we have our buyer clients pre-approved is to protect our safety. And when I say that, I'm talking about Beverly Carter and the woman in Houston that recently died, and half dozen other realtors across the country who receive a phone call of a buyer wanting to see a listing, and they pop up and they go show the house. That's not safe. That's not smart. And when I explained to my lender that he is partly responsible for our safety, light bulbs started going off for him. And I explained to him that, you know, I have a family with boys that count on me. My buyer's agent has a family with boys that count on her. And we're counting on him to pre-approve buyers, especially when we don't know who they are. We've never met them. And we need to know that they can buy a house before we waste time with them. But more importantly, we need to know that they have committed to the process enough to get a pre-approval with someone that we trust. Because when they get a pre-approval with our trusted lender, What he didn't realize in the beginning is that he gets their address, he gets their names, he gets their social security numbers, he gets past addresses of where they've lived, and so much other information. Yes, that's all confidential information, no doubt. But first of all, it's a red flag if a buyer won't get a pre-approval. Don't work with them. Your safety is more important than a damn transaction. And secondly, if the buyer won't get pre-approved, they're not serious about buying a house. And sometimes buyers can get offended if you say, I first need you to get pre-approved, because they think that you don't believe they can buy the house. That's not it. Sometimes you need to tell them it's a safety measure, or it's a policy of my team or my brokerage that, we need to make sure that you can buy this house, and just consider the fact that I'm going to be going into vacant houses with you. And this is a safety measure that I've committed to my client, my team member, my bank, my broker, that I'm going to be doing. And they should respect that enough to get the damn pre-approval, because they need it anyway. But it's so important that your lender understand that it's not just about a pre-approval to you, it's about your safety too. And if anything comes into question, or you're missing, or I'm missing, better go to my lender, because he's going to know who we're out with or who we're showing property to, right? It's so damn important, guys. A transaction of a $6,000 commission is not worth your life. And I guarantee you, your kids aren't going to think that that was worth your life either. So don't be somebody that pops up for any person that calls you and wants to see a house. Do the right thing, get them approved, do a buyer consultation in your office to protect yourself. All these things need to be done anyway. And if they're not committed to that process, they're not your client. It's not worth it. You can find plenty of people who will follow the process and will have regard for your safety and understand why you're asking for these things. So if you like this, type money. And then 2 other things. Again, I'm going to be live streaming an interview with my lender. He doesn't know I'm live streaming the interview yet, so brace yourself. It's going to be on Friday at 3:30 on my training page. So my training page is linked in the comments. It's the Amy B Experience Success Speaking and Coaching. Like that page, and then I will be there live on Friday at 3:30 with my lender, asking him questions. If you want to ask some questions, I'll start a thread in that page so that you can comment on what kind of questions that you want to ask. The lender I work with, just so you know, is a top 100 lender in the country. He does a lot of business, and he can do business anywhere. So if you have any questions, let me know. And then finally, there's a link in the post for my copy of my financing do's and don'ts. I don't have a copy of it, but it's a really great list of things to do when you're buying a house. Things not to do, like don't buy a car, don't buy furniture, and then things to do, like keep your savings account intact, don't make any transfers, all of that. It's a really great one-pager that you can use with clients. It's my page, but you can adapt it to yours and use it with your clients, and or just use it in your consultation or remind yourself of these things. But it's a great list that you can use to make sure that your buyers are rock solid. And I hope that this was helpful for you guys today. It was way longer than I expected, but so much important information. I could probably go on for 3 hours about this, but the financing piece is what's going to keep you in the business 5 and 10 years from now. We're on our 12th year of consistently doing $12 million in business. And like I said, when my buyer's agent followed this process that we've created, she tripled her income. And most of it was the way that we set up the business to get the pre-approval first and to go over those financing options and expectations in the beginning so that everybody understood what they could and could not do when buying. And if you have any interest in those courses, just reach out to me and I can get you the information. But it is step by step, and it's protecting you, protecting your business, protecting your other clients from not working with clients that can't do anything or make any purchases, and protecting your time and your money and your family. I hope this helps. This is an agent hack for you guys, and I do these every Wednesday at 10 a.m. I look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.